talk about someone who is inspiration and a good friend of both Matt and I. And it'd be great if he would cut us a check to sort of help keep the lights on here at Left Reckoning.
Yeah,
We
exactly.
have
And
we have
share that baby blood.
we got to share that baby blood. We got some. I don't know. I mean, you said this is not it's not an exciting origin story, but the kind of sad, limping origin story of Peter Thiel, at least in politics.
Yeah, it kind of Peter Thiel is this sort of mysterious guy. There's a certain aura around him now. And even for me, it was useful to go back to like, where did this guy actually
Yeah.
come from? Because I think I read 0 to 1, like his book about like, hey, if you want to be really successful, make a monopoly, which he did after he sort of made a sort of type of monopoly with PayPal, which we'll get to that in a second. He didn't make that. But Peter Thiel is basically like if Chris Rufo or James Lindsay were very well connected and had a law degree and fucked around a little bit, being a political hack, and then struck it really lucky by making friends with the right software engineer at the right time when you just had a spare like $1 million around that you had to invest. And take that and then also do some like Roth IRA sort of legal scam thing, which I don't quite understand, but seems like a good way to make a lot of money. And now all of a sudden you're the new Warren Buffett, except you think women shouldn't have the right to vote anymore because things were right before. So anyway, let's just go back to 1996. This is a couple years before PayPal, and see who Peter Thiel really is. And I think like you can kind of see where this guy comes from this clip. This is from C-SPAN. He's talking about a book called The Diversity Myth. And I also, just before you play that, what's interesting to me here is how this is the same sort of culture war bullshit. And then we talked about the Anna Kasparian thing of getting Ben Shapiro in the corner of having to say this culture war stuff is very important. And you see the way the culture war type of stuff is used to obscure actual important material issues. So here's Peter Thiel.
Well, the question then becomes, well, what are these things really about? What is multiculturalism really about? And I will suggest to you that the single most important theme that runs through much that goes under the rubric of multicultural is that it is anti-Western. It is not non-Western. It is still focused very much on our own society, but it is primarily a vehicle for denouncing it. At Stanford University, which is the one I'm the most familiar with, but I think is certainly no exception to the rule, the debate over multiculturalism in the late 80s started with a protest. The protest was against Western culture. The notorious chant was, hey, hey, ho, ho, Western culture's gotta go. It was not a demand for inclusion, it was a demand for exclusion. Now, why does Western culture have to go? What is the problem with multiculturalism? And what problem does it have? The basic problem, the basic claim is the West is uniquely bad because it is racist, it is sexist, it is oppressive in a variety of other ways. And not only does it have all these problems, but it has them in a way that is far worse than other societies. That's where I think things get very, very problematic. The multicultural educator at Stanford University liked to go around saying, I started looking for racism everywhere, and I started finding racism everywhere. And indeed, he did. If you start looking for anything everywhere, you will start finding it everywhere. If you are a feminist, and if you believe that everything that is longer than it is wide is a symbol of male oppression, then you will start finding sexism everywhere. If you want to find baseball everywhere, you can find baseball everywhere. And similarly, he could find racism everywhere. Let me just give you a couple of examples of how this process played out. There was an ongoing debate over boycotting table grapes. The fact that table grapes were served in student residences was viewed as evidence of racism. Why? Well, because most of the grape pickers in California happened to be Latino farm workers, and they were exposed to dangerous pesticides, supposedly. Now, the fact that a grape boycott would get rid of their jobs was sort of irrelevant because, again, many of these things involve more moral posturing than real substantive concerns over these issues. There was
Right. So we'll get to that grape issue in a little bit to see what sort of moral posturing was covering what there. But I also want to share this a little bit from his early career. This is just stuff you can get off of Wikipedia, but it's important context for this freak, I think. After graduating Stanford Law School, Thiel clerked for Judge James Larry Edmondson of the United States Court of Appeals in 11th Circuit. Thiel then worked as a securities law lawyer for Sullivan and Cromwell. Now, Sullivan and Cromwell is like one of the fucking deep state law firms. This is like involved in the Panama Canal project, right? So these motherfuckers, Sullivan and Cromwell, you comes up in JFK assassination stuff. That's where I first heard of it. Okay, so like, but anyway, he was only there for 7 months, citing a lack of transcendental value in his work, which I wonder about that. He then took a job as a derivatives trader, I guess, in search of transcendental value in currency options at Credit Suisse. He joined them in 1993 while also working as a speechwriter for former United States Secretary William Bennett before returning to California in 1996 to seek a more meaningful occupation. Now, that William Bennett speechwriting gig, William Bennett is a guy who was a drug war guy under H.W. Bush, and like you said, the Department of Education guy. Another, if you go to his Wikipedia, there's a section called Radio Show Abortion Comment, which says, on September 28, 2005, in a discussion on Bennett's Morning in America radio show, a caller to the show proposed that, quote, lost revenue from the people who have been aborted in the past 30 years could preserve Social Security if abortion wasn't permitted. That's not the most atrocious thing here. Following Roe versus Wade, Bennett responded that aborting all African-American babies, if you wanted to reduce crime, you could. If that were the sole purpose, you could abort every black baby in this country and the crime rate would go down. So that's who, I guess that's why you need Peter Thiel to write speeches for you, because that's who was off the cup. Now, table grapes. What could be racist about this whole table grapes thing? Well, I have a section from a speech here. Cesar Chavez, The Wrath of the Grapes speech, May 1986, and just to read a little bit of it. How can I explain these chemicals to 3-year-old Amalia Larios, who will never walk, born with a spinal defect due to pesticide exposure of her mother? What statistics are important to Adrian Espinoza, 7 years old and dying of cancer with 8 other children, whose only source of water was polluted with pesticides? What headlines can justify the loss of irrigator Manuel Anaya's right hand amputated due to the recurrent infection from powerful herbicides added to the water he worked with in the fields? How do we comfort the mother of maimed and stillborn infants, the parents who watch their teenage children sicken or die? What report can be cited at the hospital beds I visit, at growing numbers of wakes I attend? What court will hear the case of 32-year-old Juan Chaboya murdered by deadly chemicals in the freshly sprayed fields outside San Diego, his body dumped by the growers 45 miles away at a Tijuana clinic? What excuse for justice will we offer his 4 children and his widow if we do nothing? Now is the time for all of us to stand as a family and demand a response in the name of decency. Too much is at stake. This is a battle that none of us can afford to lose, because it is a fight for the future of America. It is a fight we can win, and it is a fight that everyone can join. My friends, the wrath of grapes is a plague born of selfish men that is indiscriminately and undeniably poisoning us all. Our only protection is to boycott the grapes, and our only weapon is the truth. If we unite, we can only triumph for ourselves, for our children, and for their children. We look forward to hearing from you soon. So that's a little bit of that moral posturing.
No, I mean, it is truly the art form of charlatans like Peter Thiel and Lindsay and all those folks to sit there and act like people's very, very well-grounded opposition and frustration with certain things, symbols. But hey, symbols are important, especially if anywhere at a place of education, right? At a site of education. They act like these kind of complaints and these kind of movements have no serious grounding, while in fact this one right here has grounding in literal life and death struggles, historical movements that move thousands and thousands of people to fight for justice, and not just in the kind of soft, squishy way that people like Thiel and Lindsay like to get worked up about. College kids getting triggered on campus. People saying we're going to shut down production, we're going to go on hunger strike. I mean, it's just so incredible. Just sit and act like the reason. People were just searching for a reason to be upset about something, versus they're actually being like a very concrete history, behind it, right? Ludicrous.
It's unbelievable. And I also want to just shout out the I Don't Speak German podcast, which mentioned that in their recent episode on, was it on Thiel? I should know that, but it's on a recent episode, but I Don't Speak German, good podcast.
No, they're great. Yeah, I mean, we should do something on the UFW. I think that'd be
we definitely should. Yeah,
a good story for people to be familiar with, because I don't know. I mean, it depends on where you grow up and who you surround yourself with. I don't think people know that like very crucial moment in American history.
No, I mean UFW. I mean, I wasn't a farmer growing up. My mom was, and like that side of the family was. But like the Cesar Chavez thing, like didn't penetrate at least my bubble growing
I
up.
mean, it's also very big in like parts of America that have huge Mexican American communities, and
Right.
also California, just because so much of the activism was focused there. Here in Austin, we have street named after Chavez, so like it's like if anything, you're just sort of aware of it because you're like, who's that guy? But yeah, no, I think that'd be worthwhile, man. It's funny, like people like Thiel, like it is interesting, I guess, to look at their history there, because you do think it's like, oh, this is a guy who maybe in the 2000s decided that they want to get into kind of like right-wing grievance politics because they think it's a great way to push like their insane right-wing libertarian worldview. But I didn't know that actually was the genesis in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
Political correctness.
I mean, the money came second, and he's like, "Damn, I'll just continue my fucking project here
Just
with
actually
just a whole bunch of cash."
If you ever needed another example as to why we just need to liquidate like all wealthy people's wealth,
Yeah.
and this is a sign, it's the harm that they're able to do when they have a larger cannon of money to shoot at all of us. Yeah, and also like, I mean, it's not a unique insight, but it is it's just so amazing that it's just reruns. It's just reruns, man. Like culture war politics is just reruns forever.
Yeah.
And it's political correctness, then cancel culture now. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. It's a great investment if you want to get invested in like creating a disinformation operation based around it, because you don't even need new material at a certain point. You've been making these arguments for 30 years, 40 years.